Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. In an outcome that will surprise very few, the pathetic tether Winsome Earle-Sears, whose entire political shtick has been doing the same performative self-hate as Mark Robinson and other sorry Negroes, has also met the exact same fate. All of her taking slick shots at the black community, all of her trying to be the good bootlicking Negro, all of that shameless butt-kissing, all for nothing. Now, you had some clowns from the white right who were doing this asinine thing where they said the NAACP is backing the white competitor over the black woman Earle-Sears. Ain't that something? Not since, let me check my notes. Oh yes, not since last year when Democrats were whining about black men not voting for Kamala Harris have we heard a stupid talking point like this getting kicked around, as if the Republican Party has some track record of getting black people into office. See, it doesn't matter if it's the white right or the white left. When it comes to black people, they both subscribe to the same dogma and use the same talking points. But while we're on the subject of the NAACP, on their website, they gave an immediate denial to that claim that they were endorsing Spanberger for governor. Quote, any claim that the association or the NAACP Virginia State Conference has endorsed a candidate for governor is categorically false. The NAACP supports policies, not politicians. We do not endorse candidates, and we will never allow misinformation to undermine our commitment to protecting black voters and our democracy. So there you have it. Even the NAACP had to shoot down the talking point that they were endorsing anyone. But it's interesting that they talk about policies. And what policies is the NAACP committed to protecting? Well, the first thing that they said that they were committed to protecting was black voters. They didn't say black people or the black community. It's our commitment to protecting black voters. And just in case you think that that was some sort of slip of the tongue on their part, as they put it in the very next paragraph, protecting voting rights, expanding access to affordable health care, improving economic opportunity, and ensuring that every eligible voter is able to cast a ballot freely and fairly. Now we got to unpack that for a moment. When they say protecting voting rights, that means making sure it's as easy as possible for non-citizens to vote, or at best making it as easy for black people to vote for the Democrats. But nowhere does the NAACP list what they expect black voters to get for our vote. Expanding access to affordable health care. Well, we all know what that means, abortion. These days, when the NAACP talks about health care, that's usually a euphemism for abortion because they've never talked about any other health care issue. Can you name any health care issue relevant to black people that the NAACP's been going hard in the paint for? But we have heard them talking about abortion, though, because that's what the black community really needs, less babies. Then there's improving economic opportunity. That's one of those phrases that I've been warning you about ever since we're all Detroiters now. It's a phrase that's so vague it can mean literally anything or nothing at all. And when it comes to the black community, it's usually the latter. And of course, ensuring every eligible voter is able to cast a ballot freely and fairly. Now, you see the bait and switch, don't you? They went from talking about protecting black voters to every eligible voter. See the bait and switch? So that lets you know that this is about stumping for illegal aliens or anchor babies to vote by the side door. This is on the NAACP's own website. So out of the 3 things that they named, 2 of them are about voting. That doesn't sound like much of a civil rights organization to me. It sounds more like a clumsy front for a political party. And also notice how in the previous paragraph they mentioned the word black, but then when talking about what issues they think matter, they suddenly drop the word black. And this is what's supposed to qualify as opposition to tools like Winsome Sears. But it's not as if the self-hating harpy was getting much love from the Republicans. Trump never endorsed her, and everybody noticed. When she was asked about it, she began tap dancing more around that issue, but it didn't go away. Without the Orange Messiah giving his blessing, she would never have the fanatics in his cult's backing. Hell, even with his endorsement, the white right still wouldn't want to support her, and the same white right-wing nuts who were going into phony hysterics about the NAACP endorsing Spanberger have had absolutely nothing to say about their orange man refusing to endorse the most unhinged and shameless conservative kook on the ballot. And while we can get our jollies dancing at Winsome Searle's misfortune, the reality is we've seen it all before. Mark Robinson, who is basically a self-hating version of Fat Albert, and Daniel Cameron, who is the answer to the question, what if Carlton Banks watched too much Fox News? Both of these guys were black, both of them Republicans running for governor in blood-red GOP-controlled states. They thought that they would have slam-dunk wins by running against black people, and both of them lost. because they didn't realize that the very white racist Republican voters that they wanted the support of didn't want them in office either. They hate black people in general, and that included them. That's why their online boosters never seem to notice this trend. But the black media notices. Hypocrisy, thy name art MAGA. And what will become of the now rejected Winsome Sears? Well, if that scurrilous scumbag Daniel Cameron is any indication, Searles will go and politically sell herself to some right-wing think tank or some other political whorehouse. These bootlicks know that the only thing they actually have to sell is them being the melanated face that spouts anti-black gibberish. They don't have any other marketable skill, which is why when they lose office or get kicked out of whatever administration they were part of, normally you never hear from them again. Michael Steele was one of the lucky ones. He left the RNC chairmanship and got picked up by MSNBC, and he had no problem changing gears immediately, and now he bashes the very Republican Party and conservative movement that he used to be the leader of. But I doubt MSNBC is going to make room for Sears, and I definitely don't think Fox News will give her a show. So if the performance of those other bootlicks is any indication, this is going to be the end of Winsome Sears' political career such as it was. But there is something that needs to be noted about the Virginia governor's race. And I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the copy and paste talking point that the white media is going to use when talking about a Democrat winning office from here on end. And the phrase is moderate. That's what they're saying about this Spanberger woman. Can anyone name even one of her moderate policies? What's she going to do that's so moderate? The cost of living crisis is actually an oligarchic takeover crisis. We got here because both of the major parties are wholly paid subsidiaries of big business. So not only are neither party trying to stop the billionaire class from becoming a permanent royal class, they're actually actively working to help them do it. The very bad actors who you hear the Democratic voters complaining about, from the tech bros to the institutional investors to whomever, most of them come out of or are closely linked to California and San Francisco in specific, and that includes the people who own these white media outlets. Their pivot to the right has gone so far it's crazy. The activist class on the left are not the fringe, but what they are is opposed to the policies of the investor class, the people who depend on their stock holdings remaining at a certain value in order for them to stay unbelievably rich. Everybody knows that in order to fix the problems afflicting the country, a political party will have to fight those same oligarchs, but the white media calls that the fringe and extreme and radical and everything else. Ronald Reagan wrecked the American economy. It's no accident that the 1989 recession happened a year after he left office, and conveniently when he had his boy Poppy Bush as president. After 8 years of Reaganomics and trickle-down economics, the economy finally buckled and took a lot of people down with it, and a similar collapse happened the very next time Republicans got control of the White House. When W became president in 2001, the economy was in rough shape but not bad shape, though he certainly would change that one. During his 8 years in office, the economy careened from one crisis to the next until his final year in office the wheels finally came off and the 2008 economic crash occurred, a crash that the nation still hasn't recovered from, and which, truth be told, is still going on now. I can't think of anything that this Spanberger woman said that she was going to do about the oligopoly. And that's the reason why the white media praises her as being a moderate, because that's what the white media wants you to think. When they use terms like moderate, that's supposed to trick you into thinking this is what the majority of people believe and what they agree with, when it's actually the opposite. This woman toes the line for established power, and that's why when the Democrats lose elections, the white media's narrative will be, well, those damned activists with their demands, they're the ones who caused so-and-so to lose this election, and they're bringing the party down, etc. The fact that both the white media and the Democratic Party are on the same page about that, trying to take this sucking up to power and call it being a moderate, and basically trying to brainwash people into thinking that this is a winning political stance when it's actually the opposite, that's how you know that this is actually an organized political effort going on. And it's coming from the top down. And just to show that their use of the word moderate in the Virginia governor's race wasn't some one-off, in the other big governor's race of the night in New Jersey, Democrat Mickey Sherrill won, as she was expected to. And you want to guess what word the white media used to describe her and her political platform? Moderate. So that's two examples from just one night. People who offered up nothing burgers, and yet the white media praises them and says that they're the model for what Democrats should be doing. Repetition is the mother of learning, but it's also the godmother of brainwashing too. Repeat a lie enough times and people will start to believe it. So expect the word moderate to be the word that the white media repeats endlessly in their attempt to whitewash these snake oil salesmen as being sensible or otherwise the only reasonable candidates for office that the public actually wants. People like Spanberger and Sherrill managed to win office in spite of their lack of meaningful policies, not because of it. Nobody was behind Winsome Sears. Even the Republicans couldn't bring themselves to support her. The white powers that be are running the political long con here. Rhetorical differences are not real differences, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And that brings us to the predictable victory of Zohran Mamdani in New York. He won the mayor's race, of course he did. But what's interesting to me is that so many in the white media didn't want to say it. This guy is consistently pulled ahead of everybody else in the race by a country mile, and these white media outlets are always trying to be the very first one to call a political race before the results are even in. This one was a no-brainer, but they were dragging their feet on this one. Clearly, they were not happy to have to say that this guy won. And this is supposed to be the leftist liberal media to hear the white right tell it. But keep in mind, their reluctance and hesitance to actually report Mamdani's victory is not because he's a threat to them. As I said yesterday, you can have lively, even violent disagreement within the dominant society, but that doesn't mean any of the people arguing against each other are opposed to the system. They're just bickering over their place in it. The petulance from the white media regarding Mamdani actually has very little to do with the man himself. Their real problem is with the fact that this happened at all, that the voters were the ones who made this happen. This is a data point along a trend line, and even though Mamdani is under control, if the trend continues, it's increasingly likely some future candidate may not be. The voters are trying to change things by finding people who at least claim to be from outside the system. What this means is they're not listening to the rank-and-file Democratic leaders and just going along with whatever slate of hand-picked puppets get put in front of them. The people are actually trying to find solutions for themselves. If this goes on, they may actually start thinking for themselves. And if that happens, how long until those same voters begin using ballot measures and other truly democratic means to change the policies that these bought and paid for politicians refuse to? This is what they're really upset about, where this potentially could go. This is what makes the white powers that be angry about Mamdani's election. Sure, he's essentially an unofficial tool who they'll use to let the voters blow off some steam, but they're angry that it even came to this. What it means is their control is not as solid as they need it to be. I consider it worth noting that Andrew Cuomo was endorsed by Trump, and yet not one of the talking heads on cable or elsewhere said that this disqualified Cuomo from being mayor. The same people who pretend to go into hysterics about the mere mention of Trump's name, suddenly they didn't care that the principal challenger to Mamdani was being endorsed by the head of a fascist regime. None of them was saying that this proves Cuomo is no moderate, you're better off with Mamdani than this guy. None of them were saying that at all. So Trump's endorsement for office isn't the kiss of death. It's not a clear disqualification as long as you dislike the other guy more, right? So I'll go ahead and take some of the suspense out of Mamdani's administration for you. Expect to have very few words that sound like what he said on the campaign trail, and before it's all over, expect for him to be shaking hands with and making nice with the very people that he told folks that he was actually going to be fighting. But then again, is that true? Did Zohran Mamdani actually say that he was going to war against anyone? Did he say that he was going to fight anyone? Or did he just say that there are some things that these guys over here do that he disagrees with? But regardless, the regular changing of the deck chairs on the Titanic isn't important. What is that we remain consistent in our demands. What happened last night is a taste of what the white powers that be are going to do in next year's midterms. Flood the zone with chaos and fear talk, make it a total mess, because when the white media goes into one of their manufactured frenzies about something, most people get caught up in the hype and stop thinking. And while the people are caught up and scared and confused, you can go ahead and drag in your slate of quote-unquote moderates, who are going to be people who kowtow to the very economic elites who caused the mess in the first place. And then you can go ahead and throw folks a couple of crumbs, something to pacify them. It won't pacify all of them, but it may pacify enough, and hopefully that will give the long con a lease on life, at least for 1 or 2 more election cycles. And in the meanwhile, the most important thing will happen, which is nothing. Nothing at all will happen. Nothing will change, none of the people who matter will be challenged, and the same angry voters who are causing all of this tumult, hopefully they'll be lulled back into passivity, and then things can get back to normal. Or should I say, moderate. good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Hildman Gallo, Ladane Hayton, Philip Walker, Leonard Cottingham, and Neva Bell. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.